friends, and welcome to Desserts and Dragons, where I make desserts based on things I enjoy in fantasy. Books, movies, characters, games, it doesn't matter as long as I like it. And since today is more or less the pilot episode for this channel, we're gonna do dragons. More specifically, chromatic dragons. In fact, this is the first video in the 5-video mini-series where I cover the chromatic variety. And since our lovely logo friend / mascot Des, named by a few of my friends, also shout out to the artist here, is a red dragon, that's where we're going to start. Now, red dragons are fiery, evil, spicy dragons who love mountain ranges and cruelty and death, and not like Des. Des is a goofball. I figured I wanted to try something spicy. And since in the art, Des has a little heart tail, I started thinking about those cinnamon heart candies you get for Valentine's Day. So today, we are making a French vanilla cupcake with a cinnamon spicy heart buttercream. Note here, you'll see in the video that is currently playing right now that I am using a box cake mix. There is nothing wrong with a boxed cake mix. Full stop. Do not pass go. Do not collect $100 or $200, depending on your version of the game. If you get the reference, you get the reference. This series and this channel in general is about finding your passion or joy in food and sharing it with others. This isn't about doing things perfectly. So I'm going to make this as accessible and economical as possible. If you do want a full recipe, since I am a semi-trained but mostly retired pastry chef adjacent person, I can provide one in the comments below or on Ko-fi or wherever may have you. Just shoot me some words down in the comments and we'll talk about it. Because food should be accessible to everyone. Again, full stop. Now that that's being said and done, let's actually get on and talk about the video, the dragon, and everything else in the middle. Let's talk about the ritual before we start talking about the method. Because like I said, half of this is about my craft. I'm a bit of a kitchen witch. And my magic comes from baking. So part of the ritual is I have to listen to music. If I don't, it doesn't turn out right. And preferably, when I bake, I listen to Poets of the Fall a lot. When I start, I listen to Requiem of the Harlequin. And I'll be putting the link in the description from Spotify or wherever have you so you can listen to it for yourself. It's currently one of my favorite songs. It's a song about a pretender's fall, dealing with the choices they've made and rising to find their true self. Kind of part of the shtick here. Go give it a listen. It's amazing. Another part that you can't see since I live in the basement is I start baking super early. The sun is barely up and I haven't even had my coffee yet. And any little routine that I do is part of the ritual. It's not super woohooey, even though it is super woohooey to me. Now, that's all set up. First things first. A couple quick tricks for dealing with a box cake to make it better. Instead of water, it's always milk. And instead of oil, I use melted butter. And make sure to keep some of it cold so you can melt it by hand, which you'll see me do. Also, if you want like a really flavorful moist cake, add a pudding mix into the cake mix that goes with the flavor or is the exact flavor. So chocolate pudding, vanilla pudding, so on and so forth. I forgot about that in this video, but I'll be doing it for the videos coming up. This adds richness. Along with adding an extra egg, this recipe calls for 3 eggs. I should have added 4. Again, these are your little caveats that I will be adding in ADR while we watch me do the things like trying to use a very teeny tiny bowl and a very big whisk to finish melting the butter by hand so I don't burn said butter when I melt it. Also, leaving some of the butter still kind of cool and then stirring it, emulsifying it into the warmer butter also helps it cool down so that when you add it with the milk and then you add the eggs, you're not accidentally creating scrambled eggs with your warm/hot butter. So stirring it like this ahead of time kind of helps with that. Another thing that box cake mixes don't usually say, add vanilla, which is why you see the vanilla extract bottle of Doom. It's like the biggest vanilla bottle I've ever had, is kind of sitting there in frame the entire time. Add the tablespoon of vanilla to add just more flavor. We like flavor. Okay, so right now, I didn't actually have cinnamon heart candies. We were able to find cinnamon flavored mints, and it works, and I'm just giving them a crunchity crunch to get it all powdered to help infuse it into both the cake and the buttercream, which I did that because I wasn't sure if the cinnamon flavor would actually come through in the cake, and baking it did actually mellow it out. Adding it to the buttercream helped that extra spice. So we're just crushing this down to a fine powder to better add it to its respective pieces. Now, while I crunch along, we'll talk about the red dragon. Out of the 5, they are the most selfish, the most jealous, the most confident and arrogant creatures. They love treasure, and they think that their shit don't stink, and they are the better of all 5 dragons. Or, if you include the metallic, yeah, they think they're better than metallic as well. They love death and destruction, and are quite cruel in the way they are. Also, yes, I showed you the box. Yeah, I did. Again, this is not the same as Dez. Dez is everything opposite in terms of character lore. He is a goofball and is highly food motivated. So if he had a hoard, it would be a hoard of desserts. Yes. Me throwing up a picture of what a red dragon looks like in D&D. They have long black sweeping horns, huge wings, and a long finned crest that goes from their head to their end of their neck, and from the back of the tail down to the tip. Out of all of the dragons of the Chromatic group, they embody what they look like when you think about dragons in fantasy. You'll find most red dragons in a mountainous layer. The higher the peak, the better. The bigger the range, the better. More lava, more better. They do arrogance better than everyone else, like I've said. And they consider themselves Tiamat's chosen. Alright, so I decided to switch to a spoon like a normal person because I'll also be scraping the butter into the powder mixture like you will see here. And I'll be adding the milk, the butter, the vanilla, some of the powder, as well as cracking the eggs. Here's your closer look at me adding the powder to the powder. Followed by the milk, the butter, which I needed both hands. See? And now it's time for the eggs, one at a time. Now what I would usually do is I would beat each egg individually to better incorporate them and have a fluffy consistency. But that's not what we did here, because sometimes, like I said, I don't do everything perfectly. I'm going to take it over to the big stand, aka my stand mixer. Oh yeah, and by the way, we're going to go add the vanilla, because I didn't add the vanilla when I put it over the stand mixer. Whoops! We're gonna zip it up together on low-ish speed till it's super pale, super fluffy, and it's got more air to it. Next thing, we're going to add very quickly, or, well, I've sped this up, so very slowly, making sure not to lose any air. Add your desired number of drops of food dye to get it the color you want. I was going for red. First off, it came a bit more peachy, and that's fine because we're going to get more color when we do the buttercream. Now it's time for the cake lining, which I love metal cake cups because I don't find they stick as much as the paper variety. So these are aluminum, fun little birthday cake cups. I kind of love them. These are the ones hubby picked out for me. So I appreciate the fun sparkliness of them. And of course, gotta spray them down just to make sure. You don't really need to with these, but I'm a paranoid individual, so I do the thing. I'm gonna take a measuring scoop and I'm gonna fill them like half to 2/3 of the way full to make sure that they don't rise too much. Like, I could go lower, and I know that some people are probably saying in the comments it should be a little lower fill just to make sure that they're flat. I kind of like my cupcakes a little bit more like muffins, so I tend to fill them a little far. And you just fill them up all the way until I've used most of the batter. Since I am underfilling them just a little bit, the yield's a little off, and there will be 2 trays, one of which has 6. But you just do what you desire. This is your recipe. This is your craft. Have fun if you decide to try this too. If you find yourself not having a full tray of cupcakes, another quick tip I can give you: add water to empty cups. This will help them not burn because the temperature regulation of the heat and the metal and empty cups, it's a bad time. Okay, so just pour just a little bit of water in a couple of the cups and you'll be fine. Alrighty, these are going in the oven at 350 for about 10 to 15 minutes. I'm going to be turning them when the timer goes off the first time, and then you poke them at a stick later to see when they're done. Alright, they are now out of the oven after about 13 minutes. And look at, they're pink and they're pretty and they're fluffy, and I think they're perfect, so we're going to move on. So now I'm going to let these cool and sit for a few minutes, taking them out of their tray after about 5, and then just letting them sit on a cooling rack until they're cooled completely. You want them cooled completely or your buttercream will melt. It's a problem. So we're going to start on the buttercream once everything is set and ready. For the buttercream, I'm using 4 cups of icing sugar and 1 full cup of butter, and the rest of the powder for the cinnamon hearts, and then about another tablespoon of vanilla, which my camera will focus at some point. Why is my buttercream on the stove, you ask? Well, not all of the butter was perfectly at room temperature, and it needs to be room temperature butter or it's not going to combine well. The trick for this, just add it to a double boiler with a little bit of water in the bottom of the pot, just for about a minute or 2, just to get a little bit of heat in to melt that butter. And then you're going to stir it up by hand just a little, and then you're going to take it back to your blender of choice, aka for us, Big Stan. As you can see now, it has started to combine, and you're going to whip it until it starts losing its color. It becomes pale and light and fluffy, just like it should. So I decided to add the powdered candy to the mixture before the milk. Honestly, I would have added the milk first and then the flavoring. This ended up with this super pasty buttercream that I was just fighting with so hard. But if you notice it's pasty like this, just start adding the milk a tablespoon at a time, stir it by hand, use your mixer, whatever's you're most comfortable with, until you reach a consistency that can solidly put into a piping bag and piped out without it breaking. If you notice it's getting a little too wet, add more icing sugar or powdered sugar, confectioner sugar, whichever your word for the sugar is. Just add a bit more to that as well. It also helps if you notice it's splitting. Add a bit more of the powdered sugar to it and just stir by hand until it reaches your desired consistency. All right, now that you have a happy buttercream that is pipeable and smooth, add your food dye to it, a little bit at a time, unless you want really vibrant red, which was I was going for. And the amount of dye that I had to add to get this to the color I wanted is extraordinary. Always do less. Less is more because you can always add more, but you can never take away, especially if you're adding it to the entire batch of buttercream like I am. If you are nervous about using food dye, take a small bowl of your buttercream and try that first. Then once it gets to the color you want, then it gives you a general idea, and then just dye the rest of your buttercream or add the small bowl first, and then just, again, go just a couple of drops at a time until your desired vibrancy. Also, don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. If the spatula isn't working for you cleaning off your mixer blades, just use your hands. It's fine. But if you're doing this and you're using food dye, wear gloves, or your hands will look like you have committed acts of the red kind. So wear gloves, cause your hands they'll be like that for a while. Just an FYI. I think all in all, I used about a tablespoon of food dye to get it the red that I particularly wanted. It's fine. It's not a lot of food dye, but it's a lot of food dye. Okay, so now that the buttercream is made and the cakes are cooled, it is piping time. Now, tips for piping bag usage. Put your tip into the bag and then twist it closed to make sure there's enough suction around the plastic as possible. You don't have to use a piping bag. You could use a Ziploc bag. You can just use your spoon and spread it over the top of the cakes. But since I have a piping bag, we're doing it. Also, tip for filling your bag, always underfill the bag, so you can always just open it up and fill it back more. And use a cup to stand up the bag like I am doing. That gives you enough workable room so you are not overfilling your bag, because you really don't want dyed buttercream to go up the other end of the bag and cover your hands. Trust me. Also, the reason why I had so much icing is because I love putting icing in the middle, so just poke a hole in the cupcake with either your finger or a dowel or the back end of a spoon. Like I said, I'm not afraid of getting my hands dirty. And then just pipe a little bit, just going back up the cupcake to the top, just like I am there. So that way when you bite into it, you are getting all that icing. And you don't have to put so much icing on top because you're getting icing right in the middle. Just again, remember, less is more, because you don't want to burn through your entire icing supply before you get to decorating the top as you like it. This is all personal preference, and at this point, your mileage may vary. Now, when you find that you need to replace more icing, just fold the bag back over the cup like I am doing there, and just keep filling, keep piping, and we'll get to the rosettes here in a minute. Alright, full disclosure, it has been quite a few years since I've done this. Again, I say, pretty doesn't matter, we're making these for ourselves, so just pipe the icing on as you feel comfortable with. Again, you can use a spoon if piping is not your bag, which, let's be real, I struggle with piping. I just figured I'd give it a shot, and honestly, I started getting better the more I did it. If I were to do it again, I would start a little bit more on the edges so you can hide the cake, but I didn't want to, and I didn't trust the icing that's still a little loose from dripping over the sides. So like I said before, this is about finding your joy, finding how you've decided to do these, and this is just how I ended up doing them. Also, this is sped up. This is not as fast as I actually was going. I was going really slow because I have shaky hands, and yep. Now you'll notice the buttercream did split a little bit, and I feel like it is because of the flavored powder, and I added a little bit too much milk. But this is when you learn. When I do this recipe again, less is more. And I overmixed it just a smidge. But it still came out so pretty. Look at that color, y'all. I wanted to go... It is a little darker off camera The lighting is making it look a little lighter than it is. It's gorgeous. It's more of a ruby red, less of a pastel-y pinky red. I'm a big fan. All right, here they are plated up. These are the Red Dragon Cinnamon Heart flavored pancakes for Des, the Red Dragon. Now, gotta get that bite in there. They're sweet, they're spicy, they're perfect. I wanted to say that they're not bad and I'm downplaying things, but they're pretty freaking good. And there you have it. The Red Dragon inspired cupcakes. All in all, they were amazing. Though, notes, if you have a lactose intolerance, don't use vanilla cake mix box. That's something I did learn, and another reason why I'm more than happy to provide the full recipe so you can have complete control over your dietary needs. Cause, oops! That being said, I hope you enjoyed the first episode in this series and the first episode on this channel. If you have anything that you might want to see or you think I'd enjoy in terms of the fantasy spectrums and things, shoot me a thing down in the comments below, and maybe I might take your suggestions as to what inspiration to find next for future videos. That being said, we're going to be doing 4 more episodes of dragon-related things, and I've also got some other plans in the back burner as well. So if I don't get to your inspiration moment right away, don't worry. It may happen. Provided I actually can do it. Which I can do a lot, so we'll see. Until next time, I appreciate every single one of you. Check out my other channel, Crystal's Cluster, where I make a clusterfuck of other content. And we will see you guys in the next video, stream, or reel, or wherever the hell it is you find me next. Everything's linked below.